Sarah Chen had been checking water lines on the eastern slopes of her Wyoming ranch for nearly 4 hours when instinct told her something was wrong. Not the obvious kind of wrong. No storm clouds gathering, no injured cattle visible on the horizon. This was deeper, more primal, the kind of knowing that lives in your bones. Her gelding, Copper, suddenly froze mid-step, ears swiveling backward like radar dishes. Sarah's hand moved instinctively toward the Winchester secured to her saddle. Out here, 30 miles from the nearest town, you learned to trust your gut. Mountain lions prowled these ridges. Wolves hunted in packs. Even the occasional black bear wandered through, searching for an easy meal. What emerged from the aspen grove 60 yards behind her shouldn't have been alive. The foal was buckskin, maybe 12 weeks old, with a coat dulled by days of neglect, and legs that trembled with every step. Its ribs pressed against its hide like piano keys. But what stopped Sarah's breath wasn't the foal's condition, it was the look in its eyes. This wasn't the glazed stare of a dying animal. This was determination, purpose, desperation wrapped around an iron will. Sarah dismounted slowly, making herself small, non-threatening. "Easy now," she murmured. "Where's your mama, little one?" The foal took 3 stumbling steps forward, then stopped, swaying. That's when Sarah saw the wound. A fresh graze along its neck. Not from branches or barbed wire. This was clean-edged, cauterized at the ends. A bullet had kissed this baby's throat and somehow missed everything vital. Someone had tried to kill it. And somehow, against all odds, it had survived and tracked her for miles through wilderness that would challenge a grown horse. Getting the foal back to the ranch became an exercise in calculated risk and stubborn hope. The colt, Sarah was certain now it was male, was too weak to walk 8 miles, too large to carry, and too determined to be left behind. Sarah made a decision her foreman would later call either genius or madness. She positioned the foal across Copper's withers, draping the small body over the saddle like a saddlebag. The colt was too exhausted to protest. He simply lay there, head hanging, while Sarah walked alongside, one hand supporting his weight, the other leading Copper. 4 hours. Every muscle in Sarah's arms screamed. The sun dropped behind the mountains, painting the sky the color of old bruises. She called ahead on her satellite phone. "Marcus, I need Doc Rivera at the barn. Emergency full rescue. And Marcus, this one's bad." By the time they reached the ranch, twilight had settled like ash over the valley. Marcus Winters, her foreman of 15 years, was waiting with Dr. Yuki Rivera, the veterinarian who'd seen everything these mountains could throw at an animal. Together they lifted the foal into the barn. What they found during the examination rewrote Sarah's understanding of what this colt had endured. "This isn't neglect," Dr. Rivera said quietly, running her fingers over rope burns on the colt's legs. "This is intentional cruelty. The bullet wound was infected. The rope burns spoke of restraint, violent, prolonged restraint. There were pressure marks on the colt's muzzle, evidence of a makeshift muzzle designed to silence. And when Dr. Rivera checked his teeth and gums, she found stress patterns that made her jaw tighten. "Someone took this foal from his mother by force," she said, meeting Sarah's eyes. "These injuries, particularly these defense wounds along his shoulders, suggest the mare fought hard. Sarah, I don't think this baby wandered away. I think he escaped." Sarah looked down at the colt, now resting on clean straw, his sides heaving with exhaustion. "His mother?" Dr. Rivera's silence was its own answer. But then she added, "Though, if she's alive and trapped somewhere, This little one might be the only creature who knows where. Sarah named him Echo, because he was the sound of something crying out in the wilderness, refusing to be silenced. Dawn came cold and sharp, frost turning the grass to silver wire. Sarah assembled her team, Marcus and two of her best trackers, Finn Oakes and Maya Patel, both raised in these mountains, both fluent in the language of broken twigs and disturbed earth. They left Echo in the barn with instructions for bottle feeding every 2 hours. When Sarah walked away, the colt screamed, a sound of such raw abandonment that she almost turned back. But Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. Only way to help him is to find out what happened, find out if his mama's still out there. They started from the spot where Echo had first appeared and began working backward. Maya found the signs others would miss: scraped bark at full height, a tuft of buckskin hair caught on thorns, tiny hoof prints in mud softened by recent rain. 3 hours in, Finn found what changed everything. "These aren't game trails," he called out, crouched beside deep ruts carved into soft ground. "Heavy vehicle, truck pulling a trailer, maybe 4 days old, no more." Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances. Poachers. Had to be. No legitimate reason for a livestock trailer this deep in wilderness, this far from any marked road. They followed the tracks with weapons drawn and senses sharp. Maya signaled them to stop with a raised fist. Through the trees, Sarah could see it: a makeshift camp with a weathered trailer, cold fire pit, and a portable corral made of metal panels, the kind used for temporary horse containment. The camp looked abandoned, but they approached like it might explode. Finn and Marcus checked the trailer, while Sarah and Maya examined the corral. What Sarah found made rage bloom hot in her chest. The ground was churned to mud, showing signs of violent struggle. Blood dried black on the metal panels, and caught in one corner a tuft of buckskin hair that matched Echo's coloring exactly. "Sarah," Marcus's voice came tight from the trailer, "you need to see this." Inside was equipment for an extended operation: tranquilizer darts, altered branding irons, bottles of hair dye, forged documentation templates, and a laptop still open to files that detailed everything. They were running a wild horse theft ring, Marcus explained, scrolling through records. Scout for valuable Mustangs, trap them, alter their markings, forge papers, and sell them to buyers who don't ask questions. Sarah felt sick. And Echo's mother? Marcus's jaw clenched. Buckskin mare, exceptional bloodlines, caught 2 weeks ago, worth $20,000 to the right buyer. He paused. The foal was listed as disposed of. But Echo had escaped, and he'd been trying to get back to his mother ever since. Maya found the trail leading west. Fresh manure, maybe 36 hours old, single horse, and blood. They moved with new urgency, following signs of a mare recently moved, injured, desperate. The trail led over a ridge and down into a steep ravine invisible from any direction except the one they'd come from. In a natural box canyon with walls too steep to climb, they found her. The buckskin mare was magnificent, even in her broken state. She stood in the canyon's center, head high despite obvious pain, body positioned protectively, though there was nothing left to protect. She'd been shot. Hip wound, not immediately fatal, but serious. Left here to die slowly, hidden where her body would never be found. When she saw humans approaching, she bared her teeth, ears pinned, ready to fight with her last breath. "Easy, girl," Sarah called softly. "We're not here to hurt you." She pulled out her phone and played a video of Echo from that morning, the colt's whinny as he'd called for breakfast. The mare's reaction was instantaneous and heartbreaking. Her head whipped toward the sound. She called back, a sound so desperate and full of longing that everyone watching felt it like a physical blow. She tried to move toward the phone, stumbled, nearly collapsed. "Hold on, Mama," Sarah whispered through tears. "We're bringing him to you." What followed was the most complex rescue Sarah had ever coordinated. Dr. Rivera arrived by helicopter with emergency supplies. She stabilized the mare, whom Sarah named Liberty, on site, while Marcus and Finn constructed a ramp system to bring Echo down safely. 36 hours after finding Liberty, Sarah stood at the canyon entrance with Echo. The colt had been calling constantly since leaving the ranch, somehow knowing where they were headed. When he caught his mother's scent, he nearly pulled Sarah off her feet. She let go of the lead rope. Echo half ran, half stumbled across the canyon floor. Liberty, despite her injuries, tried to meet him halfway. They came together in the center of that hidden canyon, touching noses, breathing each other in, making sounds that spoke of 2 weeks of separation and the fierce mathematics of mother love. Liberty began grooming Echo immediately, checking every inch of him, reassuring herself he was real. Echo pressed against her side, trying to nurse even though he was old enough for solid food, just needing the comfort of her presence. Everyone watching had tears streaming down their faces. Even Marcus, who claimed he never cried, was wiping his eyes with his bandana. Sarah stood there knowing that Echo's impossible journey, his refusal to give up, his determination to find help and lead them back, had just saved 2 lives. Recovery was long and difficult. Dr. Rivera performed surgery on Liberty, removing the bullet and repairing damaged tissue. Liberty stayed in the canyon for 3 weeks while her wound healed enough for transport. Sarah and her crew took turns camping there, protecting Mother and Foal from predators, providing food, water, and medical care. During those weeks, Sarah worked with law enforcement. The laptop and equipment provided evidence that led to 11 arrests across 4 states. The operation had been stealing wild horses for 6 years. Echo's determination hadn't just saved his mother, it had shut down an entire criminal network. When Liberty was finally strong enough, they moved both horses to Sarah's ranch. The original plan was rehabilitation, then release back to the wild. But as weeks turned to months, Sarah struggled with the decision. Echo had bonded with her completely, following her everywhere, calling when she was out of sight. And Liberty, while still wild at heart, had developed a cautious trust. The resolution came from the Bureau of Land Management. Impressed by Sarah's rescue and her role in shutting down the poaching ring, they offered her a unique opportunity: establish a wild horse sanctuary on her ranch, a place where rescued Mustangs could be rehabilitated and either returned to the wild or adopted to carefully vetted homes. Liberty and Echo would be the first residents, free to roam, free to leave, but always having a safe haven to return to. Sarah accepted immediately. 10 years later, Sarah stood at her fence line, watching Liberty graze in the distance with her herd, while Echo stood beside her, his head resting on her shoulder. He'd grown into a stunning buckskin gelding with his mother's excellent conformation and a personality uniquely his own: brave, intelligent, devoted. Liberty had returned to the wild, but visited every few months, bringing her herd to graze in the safe pastures, spending time with Echo, then disappearing back into the wilderness she loved. The sanctuary had grown beyond Sarah's wildest dreams. They'd rescued over 200 wild horses. Each had its own story, its own challenges. But Echo's story remained the one that inspired everything. "You know what amazes me most?" Sarah asked Echo, stroking his neck. "It's not that you survived alone. It's not even that you led us back to your mother. It's that you knew to ask for help. You could have hidden, could have given up,
But instead, you found me and refused to let me leave without understanding something was wrong. Echo turned his head, those intelligent dark eyes meeting hers, and Sarah could have sworn he understood every word. "That's the thing about horses," Marcus said, walking up to join them. "They communicate in ways we're only beginning to understand. That colt didn't randomly follow you. He chose you. Somehow, he knew you were someone who would listen." Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe Echo had chosen her specifically. Or maybe the universe had a way of putting the right souls in each other's paths at exactly the right moment. Either way, Sarah was grateful. On quiet evenings, she would sometimes ride to the spot where she'd first encountered Echo. She'd sit there and think about how different everything would be if she'd ignored that desperate whinny. All because one determined foal refused to give up. All because he knew, somehow, that she would listen. Echo's story was proof that determination can overcome impossible odds, that love is powerful enough to drive a baby horse through miles of dangerous wilderness, that asking for help isn't weakness, but courage, and that sometimes the most broken among us are the ones who end up saving everyone else. The sanctuary continued to grow, a living testament to one colt's impossible journey. And every time Sarah shared Echo's story with visitors, with school groups, with potential donors, she ended the same way. Every wild horse has a story. Some are still out there, waiting for someone to hear their call. Stay alert, stay compassionate, and never ignore a cry for help. You never know what miracle might be waiting on the other side. If Echo's journey moved you, share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that courage sometimes sounds like a cry for help and that listening can change everything.